Ji-won Kim pressed his face against the transport window and stared at the massive space station ahead. Kepler Station Academy looked like a giant metal flower floating in space. Its silver petals caught the light from the nearby star, making it shine like a jewel against the dark. Behind it, a huge gas giant spun slowly, its storms creating swirls of blue and purple clouds. "First time seeing the Academy?" asked the pilot, a friendly creature with 4 arms and green skin. Her name was Captain Zilla, and she had been flying students to the Academy for 20 years. "Yes," Ji-won said quietly. His hands shook a little as he gripped his bag. Inside were all his things from Earth, some clothes, a few books, and a picture of his family back on New Sol Colony. "Don't worry, kid. Humans do fine here. You're the 12th one this year. 12 humans out of 3,000 students." Ji-won had read that number many times, but hearing it made his stomach feel tight. He was 17 years old and had never been away from other humans for more than a few days. The transport docked with a soft bump. Ji-won followed other students through the airlock into the station. The first thing that hit him was how big everything was. The ceiling stretched up so high he could barely see it. The hallways were wide enough for 10 people to walk side by side. "That's because some species are really big," explained Hyun Park, another human student who had come to meet the new arrivals. Hyun had been at the academy for 6 months already. He was tall and thin with kind eyes and a quick smile. "The Gorvani students are like 8 feet tall and built like trucks. The ethereals float and need lots of space for their energy fields." As they walked through the station, Ji-won saw his first alien students. A group of creatures that looked like walking crystals moved past them, their bodies making soft musical sounds with each step. Behind them came something that might have been a giant spider, but it walked on just 2 legs and wore a uniform like everyone else. "Those are Silthari," Hyun said, pointing to the crystal beings. "They're really smart but kind of cold. Not mean, just they don't show emotions the way we do. And that's a Kliksari. They're actually pretty nice once you get used to them." They passed a huge window that looked out into space. Floating outside was a creature that looked like it was made of light and gas. It had no solid body that Ji-won could see, just a shifting cloud of colors. "Ethereal," Hyun said. "They don't need to breathe air like we do. Sometimes they take classes outside the station." Ji-won's head spun trying to take it all in. Back on New Sol, the most exotic thing he had ever seen, was a dog that had been gene-modified to have blue fur. Here, he was surrounded by beings that looked like they came from dreams. They reached the student housing area. Hyun showed Ji-won to his room, which was small but comfortable. The bed, desk, and closet were all designed to fit human size, which was a relief. "Tomorrow you'll meet Professor Velthar," Hyun said. "She teaches xenobiology, the study of alien life forms. She's Silthari, so she might seem unfriendly at first, but she's actually one of the better teachers here." "What about the other students? Are they friendly?" Hyun sat down on the room's only chair and thought for a moment. "Most of them are curious about humans. See, we're still pretty new to the galactic community. Humans only joined the educational consortium 5 years ago. Before that, most aliens had never seen one of us. What do they think about us? Well," Hyun looked uncomfortable. "They know Earth is classified as a Class 12 death world. That means it's one of the most dangerous planets in the galaxy, so they think we're tough survivors. But," Ji-won could tell there was more, "but they also think we're kind of fragile. Like, they believe we survived our dangerous planet by being lucky and clever, not by being strong. Most of them see us as the weak kids who need protection. That night, Ji-won lay in his narrow bed and listened to the sounds of the station. There were voices in languages he couldn't understand, the hum of air recyclers, and strange musical notes that might have been someone singing or just the sound their species made naturally. The next morning, Ji-won attended his first xenobiology class. The classroom was enormous, with seats designed for many different body types. Professor Velthar stood at the front, her crystal body catching the light and throwing rainbow patterns on the walls. She was about 7 feet tall and looked like she was carved from blue diamond. "Today we will discuss adaptation," she said in a voice that sounded like wind chimes. "How different species change to survive in their environments." She pointed to a holographic display that showed various planets. "The Gorvani come from a high-gravity world with dangerous predators. This made them strong and aggressive." A massive student in the back row nodded proudly. "The Nexari evolved on a planet with limited resources, so they developed 4 arms to use tools better." A student with purple skin and 4 arms raised one hand to wave. "And humans?" Professor Velthar's crystalline eyes turned to look at Ji-won. "And Hyun come from Earth, a Class 12 death world with extreme weather, deadly animals, and toxic plants. Somehow they survived by developing intelligence and cooperation." "But Professor," said a large Gorvani student named Thorax, "if their planet was so dangerous, how are they so small and soft? No armor, no claws, no poison. They look like they would die if you sneezed on them." Several students made sounds that might have been laughter. Ji-won felt his face get hot, but Hyun put a calming hand on his arm. Professor Velthar made a sound like crystal bells ringing. "That is an interesting observation, Thorax. Perhaps their survival was more about avoiding danger than facing it directly." After class, a 4-armed Nexari student named Kira approached them. "I hope Thorax didn't upset you. He means well, but his species values strength above everything else." "It's okay," Ji-won said, "though it wasn't really. I think it's amazing that your species survived such a dangerous world," Kira continued. "My planet has some dangerous areas, but nothing like Earth. You must have incredible survival instincts." As they walked to their next class, Ji-won thought about what everyone was saying. They all seemed to think humans were survivors who had gotten lucky, fragile beings who had somehow avoided death on a deadly world. But Ji-won remembered the stories his grandfather told about the old days on Earth, about humans who had climbed the highest mountains, explored the deepest oceans, and hunted animals much larger than themselves, about soldiers who had fought wars across entire continents, and explorers who had traveled to places that would kill most people. Maybe the aliens didn't understand what it really meant to come from a death world. Maybe they thought surviving meant hiding and running away. But humans hadn't survived Earth by avoiding danger. They had survived by becoming the most dangerous thing on it. 3 weeks passed quickly at Kepler Station Academy. Ji-won had settled into a routine of classes, study time, and trying to understand his alien classmates. He had made friends with Kira, the 4-armed Nexari student, and even earned some respect from a few others by helping them with human history assignments, but he still felt the weight of everyone's expectations. When he walked into the dining hall, conversations would quiet down. Students would watch him carefully, as if they expected him to collapse or panic at any moment. They treated him like he was made of glass. "It's getting annoying," Hyun said, one morning over breakfast. They were eating with Minho Jong, a quiet human student who rarely spoke, but always seemed to be listening to everything around him. Yesterday, Thorax actually asked me if I needed help carrying my books. Books, Jiwon. Like I'm too weak to carry paper. Minho looked up from his food. They don't understand us. They think surviving means being lucky, not being strong. What do you mean? Jiwon asked. They've never had to fight for anything, Minho said quietly. Most of these species evolved on safe worlds or became the dominant species early. They don't know what it's like when everything wants to kill you. Before Jiwon could ask more, Dr. Yuna Choi approached their table. She was the human cultural liaison at the academy, a woman in her 40s with sharp eyes and graying hair. Her job was to help alien species understand human students and to make sure the humans adjusted well to academy life. Boys, I need to talk to you about something important, she said, sitting down next to them. She looked worried. Professor Velthar has proposed a new practical exercise for advanced survival studies. What kind of exercise? Hyon asked. A live demonstration. Each species will be tested with creatures from their threat classification level. It's supposed to show how different species handle dangerous situations. Jiwon felt something cold settle in his stomach. What kind of creature are they planning to use for humans? Dr. Choi pulled out a data tablet and showed them a file. On the screen was a picture of what looked like a large deer with blue fur and silver antlers. It was actually quite beautiful. This is called a Skarnak. According to the Galactic database, it's a Class 2 aggressive herbivore from the moon below us. The files say it's territorial but not deadly, about the size of an earth horse. That doesn't look so bad, Hyon said. No, it doesn't, Dr. Choi agreed. But I'm concerned about the Academy's classification system for humans. They've put you in the lowest danger category because they think you're fragile survivors. The creatures they're planning to use for other species are much more dangerous. She showed them more files. The Gorvani students would face something that looked like a metal-plated bear with sword-like claws. The Nexari would deal with a pack of creatures that could phase in and out of solid matter. Even the peaceful Silthari would face crystalline beings that could shatter rock with sonic attacks. It's not fair, Jiwon said. They're treating us like children. I've tried to explain to the administration that human Deathworld classification might mean something different than they think, Dr. Choi said. But they insist that since humans have no natural weapons or armor, we must have survived through intelligence and luck rather than combat ability. Minho had been quiet during this conversation, but now he spoke up. Dr. Choi, what was your job before you came here? She looked surprised by the question. I was a xenopsychologist in the Earth Defense Force. Why? Did you ever see combat? Yes, during the border conflicts with the Centauri pirates, but that's not... And before Earth joined the galactic community, how did we handle dangerous animals? Dr. Choi was quiet for a moment. We hunted them, or we removed them if they threatened settlements. Right. We didn't hide from predators. We became better predators. That afternoon, Jiwon attended Professor Velthar's class with a new awareness. The crystal teacher announced the details of the upcoming practical exercise to the entire class. Each species will demonstrate their natural survival responses when faced with appropriate challenges, she said, her voice like musical crystal. This will help us understand how evolution shapes behavior. Thorax, the large Gorvani student, grinned with excitement. Finally, something interesting. I was getting bored with all this theory. The exercise will take place in Biodome 7, Professor Velthar continued. Each group will face creatures from their homeworld threat classification. The Gorvani will face armored ridge stalkers. The Nexari will handle phase hunters. The Silthari will manage resonance beasts. She turned her crystalline gaze toward the human students. And our human students will observe and document the behavior of Skarnak herbivores. A simple, safe introduction to xenobiology fieldwork. Kira raised one of her 4 hands. Professor, why are the humans getting such an easy assignment? Their planet is supposed to be incredibly dangerous. An excellent question, Kira. While Earth is indeed classified as a Class 12 death world, humans survived through intelligence rather than physical confrontation. They are not adapted for direct conflict with dangerous creatures. Jiwan felt anger building in his chest. Around him, other students nodded in agreement. They all believed humans were weak creatures who had somehow gotten lucky on a deadly world. After Class Security Chief Raxon, a 6-legged insectoid Clixari, stopped by to discuss safety protocols. His compound eyes glittered as he spoke to Professor Velthar. The Skarnak specimens have been prepared, he said in a clicking voice. Very docile creatures. Perfect for the human student's first exposure to alien fauna. Excellent, Professor, Velthar replied. I want this to be a positive experience for them. They need to build confidence gradually. What about the extraction protocols? Dr. Choi asked. She had been listening from nearby. Standard emergency procedures, Security Chief Raxon said. Though with herbivores, we hardly expect any problems. The most dangerous thing about Skarnaks is that they might run away if startled. And the database information is current? Dr. Choi pressed. Of course. The files are updated every 50 years, and the last survey was completed in 2337. Very thorough. That evening, Ji-Won met with Hyeon and Minho in the human common room. They were the only 3 in their year taking advanced survival studies, so they would be doing the exercise together. 50 years, Minho said quietly. The alien database is 50 years old. So? Hyun asked. So a lot can change in 50 years, especially on a moon that's being terraformed for colonization. Ji-Won looked up from his study tablet. You think the creatures might have changed? I think we shouldn't assume anything, Minho said. My father was in the Earth Defense Force. He always said the most dangerous enemy is the one you underestimate. But it's just a herbivore, Hyun said. How dangerous can it be? Minho smiled, but it wasn't a happy expression. Hyun, what's the most dangerous animal that ever lived on Earth? I don't know. Tigers, bears, humans, Minho said simply. And we started as herbivores, too. The next morning brought news that made Dr. Choi even more worried. She found the boys at breakfast and sat down heavily. I tried to get more information about the Skarnaks, she said, but most of the survey data is classified or restricted. All I could find were basic behavioral notes from 50 years ago. What did they say? Ji-Won asked. Peaceful herd animals. Eat plants and moss. Avoid conflict. No natural weapons except defensive antlers. She paused. But there was one note that bothered me. The surveyor mentioned that the Skarnaks seemed unusually intelligent for herbivores. Maybe they're just smart deer, Hyun suggested. Maybe, Dr. Choi said, but she didn't sound convinced. That night, Ji-Won couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about what Minho had said about underestimating enemies. He thought about his grandfather's stories of human hunters who had tracked down creatures much larger and stronger than themselves. He thought about the fact that every alien species at the Academy believed humans were weak and fragile, and he wondered what would happen when they finally learned the truth. The day of the practical exercise arrived with great excitement throughout the academy. Students from all species had gathered to watch the demonstrations in Biodome 7. The massive dome was split into different sections, each one designed to look like a natural environment from various worlds. Jiwon stood with 11 other human students in what was supposed to be a safe observation area. Besides himself, Hayan, and Minho, there were 8 other humans he didn't know well. There was Sora Lim, a girl with short black hair who studied engineering, Daeho Nam, a serious boy who never smiled, and 6 others who all looked nervous about what was coming. The human section of the dome looked like a peaceful forest clearing. Tall trees surrounded a grassy area with a small stream running through it. Birds that looked almost like Earth species sang in the branches. It was beautiful and calm. "Very safe," said Security Chief Raxon as he checked their equipment. Each human student had been given basic camping gear, a backpack, some food, a water container, and a simple tablet for recording observations. "Remember, you are here to observe and document. The Skarnak is a peaceful herbivore. It will likely ignore you completely." Above them, viewing platforms held about 200 alien students. Jiwon could see Kira waving at him with one of her 4 arms. Thorax was leaning forward with excitement, clearly hoping something interesting would happen. Professor Velthar stood with the other teachers, her crystal body reflecting the dome's artificial sunlight. "The betting pools are quite active," Hyun whispered to Jiwon. "Apparently most students think we'll call for extraction within the first 10 minutes. "Why would we do that?" Sora asked. She had been listening to their conversation. "Because they think we're fragile," Minho answered quietly. "They expect us to panic when we see a large animal." Dr. Choi appeared next to their group. She was not supposed to be in the dome during the exercise, but she had convinced the administration to let her observe from ground level in case the human students needed cultural support. "I still don't like this," she said quietly to Professor Velthar, who had come down to see them off. "Something feels wrong about the whole setup." "Dr. Choi, you worry too much," the crystal professor replied. "The Skarnak is completely harmless. Our students will learn valuable lessons about xenobiology and gain confidence in dealing with alien life forms." A loud horn sounded, signaling the start of the exercise. In other sections of the dome, Jiwon could hear the sounds of much more dangerous encounters beginning. Roars, screeches, and the clash of combat echoed from where the Gorvani and other species were facing their challenges. "Release the specimen," Security Chief Raxon announced. A section of the dome wall opened, and a sleek transport pod moved into their forest area. The pod was about the size of a small car and had darkened windows so they couldn't see what was inside. "Here we go," Hyun said nervously. The pod stopped about 50 meters away from the human students and opened with a soft hiss. For a moment, nothing happened. Then a beautiful creature stepped out into the sunlight. The Skarnak looked exactly like the pictures in the database. It was about the size of a horse, with blue fur that shimmered like silk and silver antlers that caught the light. It had large, dark eyes and moved with graceful steps. It really did look like a peaceful deer. "Oh, it's actually kind of cute," said one of the human students. The creature lifted its head and looked around the forest clearing with what seemed like curiosity. It took a few steps toward a patch of flowers and lowered its head to sniff them. Above, them alien students were already making disappointed sounds. "This is boring," Jiwon heard Thorax complain. "They're not even afraid of it." But Minho was frowning. "Something's not right," he said quietly. "What do you mean?" Jiwon asked. "Look at its eyes. and watch how it moves. Ji-won looked more carefully at the Skarnak. At first glance, it seemed completely peaceful. But now that Minho had pointed it out, there was something strange about the way it was behaving. Its eyes weren't the simple eyes of a prey animal. They were alert and intelligent, constantly scanning the area, and its movements weren't random browsing. It was systematically exploring the forest clearing like it was mapping the area. "It's hunting," Daeho said suddenly. He had been quiet, until now, but his voice was sharp with recognition. "That's not a herbivore, that's a predator." As if it had heard him, the Skarnak's head snapped up. Its dark eyes fixed on the group of human students, and for a moment, Ji-won saw something that made his blood run cold. The creature's eyes held intelligence, calculation, and hunger. "Extraction," Dr. Choi said immediately into her communication device. "I'm calling for immediate extraction." But nothing happened. Her device made no sound. The Skarnak took a step toward them, and suddenly its entire body seemed to change. Its graceful movements became predatory stalking. Its antlers, which had looked decorative, spread wider and revealed razor-sharp points. Most terrifying of all, its mouth opened to reveal rows of needle-like teeth. "That's not a herbivore," Sora whispered. Security Chief Raxon was speaking rapidly into his communication device from the viewing platform above. "Transport pod, respond. Transport pod, acknowledge extraction request." There was no response. The pod that had brought the Skarnak sat silent and dark. "What's happening?" Professor Velthar asked, her crystal voice now sharp with concern. "The pod isn't responding," Security Chief Raxon reported. "All communication with the dome systems has been cut off." Above them, alien students were no longer bored. They pressed against the viewing platform barriers, trying to get a better look at what was happening below. The Skarnak made a sound that was nothing like anything a deer would make. It was a low, thrumming call that seemed to vibrate through the ground. And from the forest around them, other sounds answered it. "Oh no," Dr. Choi breathed. "There's more than one." 4 more Skarnaks emerged from the trees around the clearing. They moved with perfect coordination, spreading out to surround the human students. Each one was larger than the first, and all of them had the same intelligent, hungry eyes. "This is not possible," Professor Velthar said from above. "The database clearly states—" "The database is 50 years old," Minho interrupted, speaking, loud enough for everyone to hear. "These aren't the same creatures that were cataloged 50 years ago." The lead Skarnak took another step toward them, and now Ji-won could see more changes from the original description. Its legs were longer, and more muscular than in the pictures. Its claws, which should have been simple hooves, were curved and sharp, and along its neck and back he could see what looked like electromagnetic organs pulsing with faint blue light. "Those are EMP generators," Sora said, recognizing the technology from her engineering studies. "That's why the communication systems failed. They're jamming everything electronic." "Impossible," Security Chief Raxon insisted. "Animals don't have natural EMP abilities." "These do," Daeho said grimly. The 5 Skarnaks had completely surrounded the human students now. They moved with the coordinated precision of a pack of wolves, but with an intelligence that was far beyond anything Ji-won had ever seen in an animal. "Security protocols," Professor Velthar announced. "Emergency extraction of all students immediately." "The extraction systems are not responding," Security Chief Raxon reported. "The electromagnetic interference is blocking all remote access to the dome." Above them, the alien students had gone completely silent. They were no longer watching a simple observation exercise. They were watching 12 human students trapped with 5 evolved predators in a locked dome with no way out. "Can't you just open the dome manually?" Dr. Choi called up to them. "The manual controls are also electronic," Security Chief Raxon replied. "Everything is blocked." The lead Skarnak made another thrumming call, and the pack began to close in. They moved slowly, deliberately, like cats playing with mice. Their electromagnetic organs pulsed brighter, and Ji-Won felt the hair on his arms stand up from the static charge in the air. "We're trapped," Hyun said quietly. Above them, 200 alien students watched in growing horror as they realized what was happening. The fragile human students they had expected to see panic and call for help were now facing real danger, and there was no help coming. "Do something!" Kira called down to Security Chief Raxon. "We're trying everything," he replied. "The systems are completely locked out." The Skarnaks were only 10 meters away now and getting closer. Their eyes never left the human students, and their movements showed the patience of experienced hunters who knew their prey had nowhere to run. Ji-Won looked at his fellow humans. Some of them were scared, but none of them were panicking. Min-ho had moved slightly forward, putting himself between the pack and the younger students. Sora was looking around the clearing, clearly analyzing possible defensive positions. Daiho was watching the Skarnak's movements with the focus of someone who understood predatory behavior. And suddenly Ji-Won realized something that made him almost smile despite the danger. The aliens above them were about to learn why Earth was really called a death world. It wasn't because of what it contained. It was because of what it had created. The moment the Skarnaks moved into attack formation, something changed in the human students. It was subtle at first, a shift in posture, a sharpening of focus, a sudden stillness that had nothing to do with fear. Ji-Won felt it happen to himself. The nervous anxiety he had been carrying for weeks at the academy simply vanished. His breathing steadied. His mind became clear and focused. Every detail of the forest clearing became sharp and important. The positions of the trees, the slope of the ground, the distance to the stream, the way the light fell through the branches. He wasn't the only one. Around him, his fellow human. Students were undergoing the same transformation. The scared teenagers from a few moments ago were becoming something else entirely. Min-ho stepped forward slightly, and when he spoke, his voice carried a quiet authority that made everyone listen. "Sora, what materials do we have?" "Standard camping gear," she replied quickly, her engineering mind already working. "Rope, metal stakes, cooking equipment, fire starters, and some basic tools." "Daiho, what's the pack structure?" Daiho had been watching the Skarnaks with intense focus. Alpha male in front, 2 flankers on the sides, 2 more behind to cut off retreat. Classic hunting formation. They're smart, probably smarter than wolves. "Hyun, how much do you remember from your grandfather's hunting stories?" "Enough," Hyun said grimly. "These things are apex predators, but they're still animals. They'll have instincts we can use against them." Above them, the alien students watched in amazement as the fragile humans calmly analyzed their situation instead of panicking. Professor Velthar's crystal body was pulsing with rapid light patterns, a sign of extreme agitation in her species. "Shouldn't they be screaming for help?" Thorax asked in confusion. "Why aren't they afraid?" Kira wondered aloud. Dr. Choi, watching from ground level, smiled grimly. "Because they're not prey animals," she said quietly. "They never were." The lead Skarnak, sensing that its prey was not behaving as expected, made a threatening charge forward. It came within 5 meters of the humans before stopping and rearing up on its hind legs, displaying its razor-sharp claws and electromagnetic organs. The reaction from the human students was not what anyone expected. Instead of backing away, Ji-won and Min-ho stepped forward, not aggressively, but with the calm confidence of creatures that had never learned to fear anything. "Big mistake," Min-ho said quietly to the Skarnak, as if it could understand him. "You just showed us your full threat. Display, now we know exactly what you can do." The Skarnak seemed confused by this response. It dropped back to 4 legs and made a questioning sound to its packmates. "They're not used to prey that doesn't run," Daeho observed. "That's good. Confusion is something we can work with." Sora had been busy while the others talked. She had quietly unpacked her camping gear and was now holding a metal tent stake like a weapon. "These are titanium alloy," she said. "Strong enough to pierce their hide if we can get close enough." "We're not getting close to those claws," Ji-won said. "But we don't need to." He looked around the clearing again, this time with the calculating gaze of a predator rather than prey. "Hyun, do you see that fallen log by the stream?" "The one with the sharp broken end?" "Yeah." "And Daeho, notice how they're all staying in formation. They won't split up because that would make them vulnerable. So if we can force them to move, as a group," Daeho began to smile, "we can control where they go." The plan came together quickly, communicated in quick whispers and meaningful glances. The alien students above couldn't hear what the humans were saying, but they could see that some kind of strategy was being formed. "What are they doing?" Security Chief Raxon asked nervously. "They should be trying to minimize movement and wait for rescue." "I don't think they're planning to wait," Dr. Choi said with growing pride. The Skarnaks had finished their threat display and were beginning to close in again. But now the humans were ready. Ji-won picked up a handful of dirt and small stones. "Remember, they hunt by pack coordination. Break that coordination, and they become just big animals." The attack came fast. The lead Skarnak charged first, followed immediately by the 2 flankers. Their claws tore up chunks of earth as they ran, and their electromagnetic organs blazed with energy that made the air crackle. But the humans didn't run. Instead, Ji-won threw his handful of dirt directly into the lead Skarnak's eyes. At the same moment, Hyun and 2 other students threw their own projectiles at the flankers. The creatures stumbled, their perfect coordination broken for just a moment. That moment was all Min-ho needed. He had positioned himself near a large branch, and now he swung it with all his strength at the charging Alpha. The branch connected with the creature's head, sending it spinning sideways. "Now!" Ji-won shouted. The humans scattered, but not randomly. They moved according to their plan, driving the confused Skarnaks toward the fallen log by the stream. Sora had used her rope to create a simple but effective tripwire. Daeho had positioned sharp stones to force the pack into a narrow channel. The Skarnaks, used to hunting creatures that ran in straight lines away from danger, found themselves dealing with prey that was actively trying to outmaneuver them. Their pack coordination broke down as they struggled to adapt to this new kind of behavior. "Impossible," Thorax breathed from above. "They're fighting back. Actually fighting back." "Look at how they move," Kira said in amazement. "It's like they've done this before." "They have," Dr. Choi said proudly. "Their ancestors have been hunting in coordinated groups for thousands of years." The largest Skarnak, frustrated by its pack's inability to corner the humans, broke formation and charged directly at Ji-won. Its claws extended and its electromagnetic organs pulsed with enough energy to temporarily blind anyone looking directly at it. Ji-won didn't try to run. Instead, he waited until the last possible second, then dropped and rolled to the side. The Skarnak's momentum carried it past him, directly into Sora's trap. The creature's legs tangled in the rope, and it crashed headfirst into the sharp end of the fallen log. The impact was tremendous. The Skarnak let out a sound of pain and rage, but it was stuck. "One down," Minho called out. The other 4 Skarnaks regrouped, but their confidence was shaken. They had never encountered prey that fought back so effectively. Their hunting instincts told them to retreat and find easier targets. But G1 realized that retreat might not be an option for them. These creatures had evolved in an enclosed environment. They might not even know how to give up once they had committed to a hunt. "They're not going to stop," he called to the others. "We have to finish this." What happened next would be talked about in the galactic community for years. The human students, working with a coordination that rivaled the Skarnak's own pack-hunting skills, systematically eliminated the remaining predators. Hian used fire from his camping gear to drive one creature into a position where Daiho could trap it with a rockfall. Sora had crafted spears from tent poles and rope, which proved devastatingly effective against the Skarnak's unarmored sides. Minho coordinated the whole effort with the calm efficiency of a military commander, and through it all, G1 found himself moving with instincts he didn't know he possessed. Dodging attacks, setting up traps, working seamlessly with his teammates as if they had been hunting together their whole lives. In 20 minutes, it was over. 5 apex predators that should have easily killed 12 fragile human students lay dead or dying in the forest clearing. The silence from the viewing platforms above was complete. 200 alien students stared down at the scene in absolute shock. The humans, breathing hard but uninjured, began checking on each other and gathering their scattered equipment. They moved with the casual efficiency of people who had just completed a routine task. "Medical check," Minho called out. "Anyone injured?" "Few scratches," Sora replied. "Nothing serious." "I think I pulled a muscle," Hian said, "but I'm fine." "Daiho?" "All good. Though I think we should probably clean these claws properly. Who knows what kind of bacteria they might carry." Above them, Professor Velthar finally found her voice. "How?" she asked in a whisper that somehow carried through the dome. Dr. Choi looked up at the shocked alien students. "You wanted to see how humans handle dangerous situations," she called back. "Well, now you know. But they're supposed to be fragile survivors," Security Chief Raxon protested weakly. "No," Dr. Choi corrected him. "They're supposed to be apex predators. You just never bothered to ask what it takes to survive on a Class 12 death world." G1 looked up at the viewing platforms, where alien students were staring at him and his classmates with expressions of awe, fear, and respect. For the first time since arriving at the academy, he didn't feel like he was being underestimated. "So," he called up to them, his voice calm and steady. "Does anyone still think we need protection from space deer?" The emergency meeting in Headmaster Quellon's office began 3 hours after the dome incident. The ancient ethereal floated behind his massive desk, his energy form shifting through colors that indicated deep concern. Around him sat representatives from every major species at the Academy, along with several officials who had arrived by emergency transport. Admiral Taejin Wu of the Human Colonial Defense Force was a stern man in his 50s who had commanded fleets during the border wars. He sat across from Ambassador Sun Woo Han, a diplomatic woman whose job was to maintain peaceful relations between humanity and the galactic community. Both of them looked very serious. "Show them the recording again," Headmaster Quillon said in his voice that sounded like whispered wind. The holographic display in the center of the room lit up, showing the events in Biodome 7 from multiple angles. The alien officials watched in silence as 12 human students systematically eliminated 5 apex predators with nothing but camping gear and coordination. "Remarkable," breathed Counselor Vex, a tall Silthari who served on the Galactic Educational Board. "I have reviewed this footage 17 times, and I still do not understand how they accomplished this." "Simple," Admiral Wu said bluntly. "They did what humans have always done when faced with dangerous predators. They killed them. But the classification data clearly indicates that humans are fragile survivors," protested Director Clix, the Clixari head of student safety. "Your species survived through intelligence and avoidance, not combat." Ambassador Han leaned forward. "Director Clix, may I ask who wrote those classification reports?" "Expert xenobiologists from the Galactic Survey Department. Very thorough. Individuals. And when did they study human behavior?" "The initial reports were filed when Earth first applied for membership in the galactic community 5 years ago." "I see. And how many humans did these xenobiologists actually observe in dangerous situations?" Director Clix checked his data tablet. "The studies were based on human historical records and theoretical behavioral analysis. Direct observation was deemed unnecessary since the classification was primarily for educational purposes." Admiral Wu made a sound that might have been laughter but wasn't particularly amused. "So you classified an entire species based on paperwork without ever actually watching them deal with danger?" "The theoretical framework was very comprehensive," Director Clix said defensively. "Theoretical," Ambassador Han repeated. "Tell me, Director, what do your theoretical frameworks say about how many weapons a human carries naturally?" "None of course. Humans have no claws, no natural armor, no poison glands, no built-in weapons of any kind." "Correct. Now let me ask you something else. How many weapons did those students create during their encounter with the Skarnax?" Director Clix reviewed the footage again. "They improvised several spears, multiple projectiles, fire as a weapon, and various traps." "In 20 minutes, Admiral Wu added, "with camping equipment." "Now imagine," Ambassador Han continued, "what humans might accomplish if they had actual weapons and equipment designed for combat." The room fell silent as the implications of that statement settled in. Headmaster Quillon's energy form shifted to deep purple, a color indicating serious thought in his species. "Ambassador Han, are you suggesting that the galactic community has fundamentally misunderstood human nature?" "I'm suggesting that you've confused the effect with the cause," she replied. "You saw that humans survived on a dangerous world and assumed we did it by being clever prey animals. But that's backwards." "What do you mean?" asked Professor Velthar, who had been quietly pulsing with distress since the incident. Admiral Wu stood up and walked to the holographic display. "You want to know what a Class 12 death world really means? It doesn't mean the planet tried to kill us. It means we killed everything on the planet that was more dangerous than we were." He gestured to the image of Earth that appeared on the display. 30,000 years ago, Earth had giant bears twice the size of your Gorvani. We hunted them to extinction. It had enormous cats with sword-like teeth, We killed them all. Massive reptiles, deadly insects, poisonous plants that could kill. With a touch, all of them gone. But surely some of these creatures died from natural causes, Counselor Vex protested. Some, yes. But most died because humans are very good at killing things that threaten them. Admiral Wu's voice was calm, but his words sent a chill through the room. We didn't survive Earth by avoiding danger. We made ourselves the most dangerous thing on it. Ambassador Han pulled up another display. This is why we've been so careful about how we present ourselves to the galactic community. We know that most species evolved on safer worlds. We didn't want to frighten anyone. So you deliberately downplayed your capabilities? Headmaster Quellon asked. We emphasized our peaceful intentions and our survival skills rather than our combat abilities, she confirmed. We thought it would make integration easier. Dr. Choi, who had been invited to the meeting as the cultural liaison, spoke up. The students didn't even realize they were holding back. They've been trying so hard to fit in, to seem harmless and friendly, that they've been suppressing their natural reactions. Until today, Professor Velthar said quietly. Until today, Dr. Choi agreed. When they were faced with real danger, and their survival instincts took over. Security Chief Raxon had been reviewing technical reports during the conversation. Now, he looked up with what might have been fear in his compound eyes. The electromagnetic interference from the Skarnax disabled all our security systems, but according to this analysis, the human students adapted to the threat in less than 30 seconds. Adaptation speed is a key survival trait, Admiral Wu explained. When everything on your planet is trying to kill you, you learn to think fast or you die. But what about the cooperation? Counselor Vex asked. The coordination they displayed was extraordinary. Pack hunting, Dr. Choi said simply. Humans are social predators. We've been hunting in coordinated groups for our entire evolutionary history. Ambassador Han stood and walked to the window that looked out over the academy. Students from dozens of species were going about their daily routines, but there was a new tension in the air. Word of what had happened in the biodome was spreading. Quickly. The question now, she said, is what we do with this information. Immediate reclassification, Director Klix said quickly. Humans clearly belong in the highest danger category. That might cause panic, Headmaster Quellon pointed out. Many species will be frightened to learn that they've been sharing facilities with apex predators. Some already are, Professor Velthar admitted. Several Nexari students have requested transfers to other academies. And the ethereal students are asking for additional security measures. Admiral Wu turned from the display to face the group. This is exactly what we were trying to avoid. Fear breeds conflict, but hiding the truth breeds misunderstanding, Counselor Vex pointed out. Today's incident could have been much worse if we had not learned these facts about human capabilities. Dr. Choi had an idea. What if we approach this as an educational opportunity rather than a security concern? What do you mean? Headmaster Quellon asked. Instead of just reclassifying humans as dangerous, what if we created programs that help all species understand each other better? Humans can learn about alien capabilities, and aliens can learn about human nature without fear. Joint training. Exercises, Admiral Wu said, following her thought. Cooperative rather than competitive. Yes. Show that human combat skills can be used to protect others, not just to eliminate threats. Ambassador Han smiled for the first time since the meeting began. We could start with the students who were in the dome today. They've already seen what humans can do. But they also saw that the humans only used violence when it was necessary for survival. Over the next several hours, they worked out the details of a new program. Human students would be reclassified, but the focus would be on cooperation and mutual understanding rather than fear and separation. Ji-won learned about these decisions when Dr. Choi found him in the human common room that evening. He was sitting with Hyun, Minho, and several other students, including some who had heard about the day's events and wanted to know what had really happened. "So, what's the verdict?" Hyun asked when Dr. Choi sat down with them. "You're being moved to advanced training scenarios," she said. "But you'll be working with alien students as partners, not competing against them." "Good," Minho said. "I was getting tired of being treated like a fragile flower." "What about the other students?" Ji-won asked. "Are they afraid of us now?" Dr. Choi smiled. "Some are, but others are fascinated. Kira requested to be your partner for the new joint exercises. And believe it or not, Thorax wants to learn human combat techniques. Seriously? He said any species that can take down 5 apex predators with camping gear deserves respect." That night, Ji-won stood at his room's window and looked out at the gas giant that dominated the sky. Tomorrow would bring new challenges and new opportunities to build bridges between species. For the first time since arriving at the academy, he felt like he could be himself, not a fragile survivor trying to fit in, but a human being with all the strength and capability that meant. Behind him, his communication device chimed with a message from his family back on New Seoul.